That is how it must have been. Many hundreds of years ago, the men discovered a rich vein in the rock. The vein had to be mined, but the silver that the miners had been after was suddenly not silver anymore. Rumor had it that goblins had transformed it into something else to stop people's greed. No one else was to rule the underground kingdom of the earth spirits. Fearlessly, the miners from the Ore Mountains in Saxony advanced deeper and deeper into the interior of the earth. But instead of silver, they kept coming across this unknown substance, which they believed was bewitched and worthless. They named it after the ominous goblins, nickel. New Caledonia is situated in the huge expanse of the Pacific Ocean, on the other side of the equator, around 1,500 kilometers east of Australia. The archipelago is surrounded by a massive coral reef. Across many kilometers, rocky terraces lean against the mountains. They are evidence of surface mining, which reaches the treasure from above. Nowhere else can you find so much nickel in such a limited space. Around 1/4 of the world's nickel deposits are in New Caledonia. The French overseas territory lives off mining nickel and has been for several hundred years. If it is up to the big mining firms, the valuable raw material will continue to be mined for a long time. Eric Attai works for the Société Minière du Sud Pacifique, the SMSP. It is a local company. Eric Attai is a Kanak, as the native inhabitants of New Caledonia call themselves. Kanak means nothing other than human being. Until very recently, Kanaks only held menial jobs, but this is no longer the case. I'm only 40, and I have noticed that never before has a native been responsible for mining. Never before has a Kanak held the position that I am holding now, being the boss of the mine.
Qui était à ce poste que j'ai aujourd'hui, c'est-à-dire chef de mine.
The product that we make is very important for us. It means jobs for the Canucks and also the people around the mine.
Pour moi, c'est quelque chose de primordial dans le sens où ça donne de l'emploi. L'emploi aux Kanaks et puis les gens de l'environnement.
Eric Attai comes from very near the Wako mine. That is why he speaks Gomen, the local language, one of 27 New Caledonian languages. In order to get along well with his colleagues, it is essential that he is able to communicate in their language. It is often more important than being able to answer technical questions. It is one of Eric Attai's responsibilities to always be in the right place at the right time. He organizes, controls, and directs. He has a hand in making sure that the raw material, nickel, which the world relies upon, can be constantly supplied. Eric Attai has been part of it for 20 years, half of his life. There's hardly anything in the mine that he has not done before. If one of his team drops out, he slips into one of his former roles, be it as a machinist at the rock machine or driving the shovel excavator. As far as this is possible, Erikatai proceeds carefully to get to the nickel. He follows the instructions of the geologists. But not all stone is the same. He has come across some ore. It contains enough of the green gold, as they used to call nickel in New Caledonia. It is worth processing. Thierry Crasté is a mining engineer in Preusse, around 100 kilometers south of Wako. The 38-year-old man from southern France has seen a lot of the world. In Africa, he mostly dug for gold. In New Caledonia, he's looking for nickel. The mine of Preusse is situated on the Copeto Massif. It is one of 4 mines run by the French State Mining Society, SLN, the Société Le Nickel. The SLN has been in New Caledonia since the end of the 19th century. Before Thierry Crasté drives to the mine, he asks his boss whether the long-awaited cargo ship has arrived yet. It is supposed to pick up the nickel. Hello, Thierry. How are you doing? Oh, thank you. Did you see that the ship will arrive at 3:30 in the afternoon? No, I thought it would arrive this morning, no? Yes, but it is late. It was supposed to come this morning, but it was rescheduled. Okay, no problem. In New Caledonia, nickel ore can be found under a very thin layer of earth. The nickel-containing layers are 30 to 40 meters thick and sometimes up to 100 meters. Today, the engineers are taking an interest in this red and yellow laterite soil with nickel. Thierry Crasté wants to know how the test drills are going. With the help of a machine, the miners are obtaining rock samples from deep below the Earth's surface. In order to locate the nickel, the drill team has to make the circle smaller and smaller and drill every few meters. The mining engineers need a precise picture of the underground layers of nickel. What we can get here is exactly what we see there, only what sticks to the edge there. Everything you can see, but we avoid going right to the edge. And on the other side? It seems that the plane with the fissure over there at the back blocks up. I thought that there are more minerals there. And the problem is, if we want to do something over there, we would first of all have to remove the unproductive layers. I don't know whether we can manage that. The test drills will decide over the future of the mine. Nobody knows whether or how much nickel is buried there. Until recently, geologists thought that one part of the mine could be closed down. Then they turned out to be wrong. They came across a layer that contains 10 years' worth of nickel. Thierry Crasté and his colleagues are eagerly waiting to see what the hollow rod will bring to light. The miners immediately see that the rock is not as promising as they had thought. Only when the rock is weathered is there a chance of nickel deposits. Thierry Crasté wants to know more details about the drill. How deep are you? 11 meters? Before this test drill, the experts carried out some geological calculations. According to those, there should be nickel here. What you see here is not what we expected. The most important thing for mineralization to take place is the weathering of the rock. What we look for is material that has deteriorated, and here we see healthy material that has not undergone many changes. That means that we have less of a chance to find mineable nickel. For us, this type of material is sterile, simply unusable. It is of no significance to us. What we look for is areas where there have been changes, areas with a layer of loam where you can find nickel. In those places where the miners did discover something, the nickel is mined in shifts. Around 850,000 tons of nickel ore per year. This makes the Nepui mine one of the largest in New Caledonia. It is 5 kilometers long. Its highest plateaus are 1,000 meters above sea level. The miners use heavy equipment to get at the nickel. In order to mine 1 ton of nickel ore, they have to move several times that amount from one place to another. The shovel dozers, bulldozers and trucks carry off between 4 and 7 times that amount from the mountains. The pure nickel content of the rock is around 2.9% in Nepui. Compared with other mines, that is a lot. Like in every other industry, the mining industry can no longer get by without computers. The 100-ton trucks are equipped with satellite navigation systems. That way the engineers always know what, how much and where to the material is transported. Any remaining uncertainties can be settled via radio. Miners are sought after in New Caledonia. It has not always been that way. Mines had to be closed down 20 years ago. Today the demand for nickel is larger than ever. This is one of the reasons why the workers earn a relatively good wage. A lorry driver earns around 190,000 francs Pacifique per month. That's 1,600 euros, as much as a teacher. Back to the Wako mine on the New Caledonian west coast. Occasionally, Eric Attai himself lends a hand to roll the rocks along. The locals are proud of their mine. When mining began at the end of the 19th century, New Caledonia was a French colony. It was therefore mostly French entrepreneurs who exploited the land. To this day, it is predominantly international corporate groups who make a lot of money out of the mineral resources. The local mining company which Eric Attai works for reinvests their profits in the region, in fish farms, hotels and restaurants. That way jobs are created outside the mines. In order to separate the nickel ore from the worthless rock, the stones are first of all pre-sorted. Regular analysis ensure that the valuable nickel does not get lost. I am taking a sample. This is not really my job. But I do it because we don't have enough people. We have asked for 2 people for this job. And the 2 men will begin tomorrow.
Et les 2 gars, ils vont commencer demain.
The miners put the biggest lumps, which don't fall through the grid on the ramp, into closed-down parts of the mine, or they are used for road building. Sometimes the boulders are so massive that they are not suitable for that. All other rocks end up in the concasseur. With a deafening noise, the rock eater immediately begins to do its job. The rock is shaken and jounced, shattered and crushed. The machine separates the different sizes. Large rocks that are of no interest for mining nickel slide down into the depth. Smaller rocks and nickel-containing earth falls onto a conveyor belt that spits it out onto a heap. A simple but effective technique.
aura systématiquement cet écart en diagonale.
After the disappointing test drill, Thierry Crastet and his colleagues discuss what should be done next. Where should the next blasting take place? Where can they mine, and what should they do with the huge amount of worthless rock that accumulates? The solution for perhaps closing these areas is to start there again, to realize the first third that way. Until then, there is no risk of environmental pollution. We do it as always. Yes, even until here, there's little risk.
Ouais, mais on peut même dire à tout ça, il y a relativement peu de danger.
The engineers try to exploit the mineral resources as best as possible. Often they cannot make allowances for the environmental impact this has.
On peut tirer avec les trois devant.
In Nepuy, the weathered nickel-containing laterite soil is thoroughly rinsed like in a large washing machine drum with several pre-wash stages. The aim is to prepare the nickel ore in such a way that only very specific parts make the next stage of the journey, namely across a 7-kilometer-long pipeline to another washing plant at the foot of the mine. Everything larger than 3 centimeters will be separated out beforehand and falls by the wayside. Extracting nickel is a very laborious process. When Thierry Crastet used to prospect for gold, he achieved his goal earlier, and yet nickel holds a fascination for him. There are many reasons that make people want to mine nickel. It is a little bit like the gold fever in the history of North America. That is why we chase it day after day and try to mine as much nickel as possible. There is that factor. It's a little bit like it is with gold. After all, they call nickel green gold, especially in New Caledonia. It is a little bit like when people bet on horses. They bet on a certain horse, and once they are into it, they can't get away from it. And it's a little bit like that here. It is satisfying to be able to say, see, I have understood you, I saw you, I found you, I've got you.
Je t'avais compris, je t'ai vu, je t'ai trouvé, je t'avais compris et je t'ai eu, quoi.
Quite often, deep clouds hang low over the mine of Nepuy. That is when the temperatures at an altitude of 1,000 meters can fall to almost freezing point. If the clouds get even heavier, and if you can see for less than 50 meters, then the lorry drivers have to stop working. The mine comes to a rest for a little while. Nickel mining in New Caledonia has a 100-year-old history. It was not only political prisoners and convicts from France who came to the prisoner island, but also adventurers from Europe, Asia, and America to make their fortune in the mines. Jean-Franck Natimen, an immigrant with French and Indonesian parentage, worked as a miner in Tibagi in the north of the island for many years. Together with his fellow miners, he is trying to keep alive the memory of life in the mine. When I got here in 1948, there weren't so many activities here. There was only the mine. The atmosphere was good. That's what the atmosphere was like at that time everywhere. It wasn't at all like it is today, because people today don't have the same sensitivities. People think differently. We used to be all brothers and sisters. I knew 7 fellow miners who died down in the mine because of earth slides, explosions, or because they fell into a pit, or because the lift shaft cable tore.
Ou alors par le puits, par la cage, le câble cassé.
In some regions, there's hardly a mountain that remains untouched by the engineers in their search for new deposits. Although today there are environmental obligations and none of the mining companies fail to point out the special environmental measures in their business reports, it remains to be seen how successful it will be to plant bushes and trees where nickel is no longer being mined.
Pour la création de ces versas stériles,
In order to fill up these areas with worthless rock, we use up natural areas. In this case, we use up very large areas to deposit useless stones, and we have destroyed some virgin forest. Our main objective when we build a hill is to ensure stability, to make sure that the whole thing is stable. That is, that all the rubble that we deposit in this place doesn't later end up in the valley.
plus bas dans la vallée. Donc ça, c'est l'objectif majeur. Si on veut continuer à pouvoir développer notre activité,
That is the most important objective. If we want to further develop our activities in New Caledonia, we must be able to show that we can do a neat job. To leave a place without there being consequences for the locals for years or even centuries to come. The environmental protection expenses are necessary to secure our activities for the future.
nécessaire pour garantir notre activité de demain.
On the way to one of the many diving grounds around New Caledonia, only a few hundred meters offshore. Jackie Mermout and Rick Annex have been fighting for years against the consequences of mining nickel for the coral reef and people's health. They are lobbying for UNESCO to declare the second biggest reef system in the world after the Great Barrier Reef in Australia a World Heritage Site. Rick Annex, who is American by birth, has been living in New Caledonia for 20 years. He believes that that is the only way to put a stop to the unchecked expansion of the nickel industry, at least to some degree.
In the past, the main consequences of nickel mining on the marine environment have been through runoff. And this runoff has also been aided by massive deforestation. And fires. There are other more insidious and pernicious aspects of nickel mining, such as the toxic heavy metals that run off as well. And there are many things we don't know yet, which I'm sure will be discovered if we investigate.
As part of the groundwork for this research, Rick Annex looks at the state of the coral reef to register any changes. An underwater desert. The leachades from the mine cover the corals and take away the sunlight. As a consequence, they fade and die. Only a few meters further on, it looks like this. There is no pollution. Due to its secluded location, over millions of years, New Caledonia was able to develop a unique fauna and flora. Many species have not even been researched yet. Change of shift in the mine in Wako. Eric Attai makes sure that his colleagues park their machines according to the rules. Every driver in the mine has to carefully record how many tons of rock he has transported. That is the only way of monitoring the overall amount that is being mined every day. Eric Attai delivers the data. The engineers and geologists rely on them. Until not too long ago, the native population did not know about shift changes, regular working hours, and finishing times. Previously, only few Kanaks worked in the mines. They did not have the necessary expertise. Most miners came from abroad. Since about 15 years ago, the mine has belonged to the northern province. For many Kanaks, this marked a significant change in their lives. The profit is now theirs, and not other people's. The families used to be poor. Today, the mines secure a certain degree of prosperity. Today, I see people who get involved. People from my race who want to work. They want to make it. They want to achieve something one day. It motivates me to see that we have mineral resources. It is like a dream. We didn't believe it. But today there is the mine.
C'était un rêve. On ne croyait pas, mais aujourd'hui, la mine, elle existe. Et c'est pour nous, en tant que Mélanésiens, Kanaks, gens du pays, ici dans la province nord, c'est quelque chose de... C'est plus que toute autre chose.
The Kanaks have a special relationship with nature. People always stay connected to the land of their ancestors. The ground provided food for their forebears. It is thanks to them that they are here. Eric Attai's family relies on the harvest. It is too expensive to buy the vegetables. In August, tapioca is in season. In New Caledonia, like elsewhere in the tropics, this starchy tuber is one of the staple foods. Clara, Eric Attai's wife, is not part of his tribe. She comes from one of the neighboring islands. She and Eric speak to each other in French. Clara does not understand Gourmet. We collect the tapioca. Yes. First, take the ones that are peeled, and then the others. 5 hours drive and 300 kilometers further south. The environmentalists are on their way to Goro. One of the largest nickel mining areas is to be developed near the little village. Jackie Mermout and Rick Annex have been to Goro many times before. They are fighting against this large project. They have many meetings with Valentin Agourer, one of the village elders. Hello, Jackie. Can we talk to you for 5 minutes? Yes. That's very nice of you. Let's go to the meeting house. The environmentalists know that they are no longer able to stop the Canadian global corporation INCO, but they at least try to inform and to make demands. Many relationships to many foreign organizations and foundations of people who come here are dangerous for the country. 2 years ago, they came here and tried to force a number of things, but they did not manage to do it. Now they want to come back, 2 years later, with different working methods. So we must try to make sure, given that they do exploit our mineral resources, that they do it with our consent, and that they not just simply get rich and leave us with the dirt, pollution, destruction, death. We must not allow that. It is true, people came here to enlighten us about things. We ourselves, we do not know what that is. There are no graduates amongst us. We don't have any people that are intelligent enough to decide this. We were at the mercy of INCO. They promise us the mine must work. They will help the people with little projects. They will help. They will give money. But today, the people ask themselves, is that good neighborliness? The people are starting to ask themselves questions. It is pure poison, and it will spread out in the sea up to the mussels and fishes that we fish directly in front of us, a few miles away. The Canadian corporate group Inco will use chemicals to remove the nickel from the rock. The French company SLN prefers water and a lot of energy. Of the 2,300 tons of rock that pass the washing plant daily, on average, 53 tons of nickel remain. Step by step, the concentration of nickel gets higher during washing and filtering. Female workers are preparing rock samples that are taken regularly at the various stages of production. Only a precise examination reveals something about the nickel content. Based on these analyses, the experts decide where it is worth continuing to mine. Because of mining, the nickel-containing soil is washed all the way to the coast. Large parts of the mangrove woods have already suffocated in the mud. Eric Attai is not put off by that. He continues to search for a very special treat.
Le nickel.
When people talk about pollution, then it is true that nickel pollutes our water and all our mangroves, but not all of them. There is pollution only where the openings of the mines are.
Ils sont salis du fait par rapport aux ouvertures de mines, mais les poissons,
but fishes and crabs are not poisoned. You can eat them as if there wasn't a mine.
C'est comme si la mine n'existe pas.
The crabs are good. We often come to this place to look for crabs for our dinner.
Cet endroit, fouiller, chercher quelques crabes pour nous, pour le soir, quoi.
With a lot of skill and a little bit of luck, Eric Attai makes an excellent catch. Today he has managed to catch 3 large specimens, enough for an ample meal. It is not certain, however, for how long he will continue to find crabs here. Lorries transport nickel ore and highly concentrated nickel soil from the mines to the landing stages by the sea. The local mining company that Eric Attai works for is not able to process the mined nickel ore in New Caledonia. It does not own a melting furnace. That is why it is initially loaded onto barges. The small barges drag the cargo to the open sea. There, large cargo ships wait for them that cannot go over the reef to the harbor because the water level is too low. The cargo ships take the nickel ore to Australia, Japan, and even to the Ukraine, where it is being melted. The French Société Le Nickel has owned a nickel melting furnace in the capital Nouméa for almost 100 years. It is in operation 24 hours a day. Nickel ore and nickel-containing soil arrives there from the 5 mines in various concentrations. To feed the furnaces, the various ores are dried, mixed and warmed up. Only then it is possible to ensure nickel production of a consistently high quality. Electrical furnaces use high voltage and huge amounts of energy to heat the ores up to 1,600 degrees. Once per hour, the men tap the furnace. Then a white stream of melted and glowing minerals flows. In a first step, substances that would contaminate the precious metal are partially separated from the nickel. The lightest slag separates from the metal. The workers extract 110 kilograms of iron nickel from 1 ton of ore. The iron nickel is not yet sufficiently clean to be sold. There are different procedures depending on whether desired end product is iron nickel or pure nickel. The main thing is, however, to get rid of contaminants which are still present after the initial boil. Apart from small amounts of silicon, sulfur, chromium and carbon, the metal now consists of between 25 and 30% nickel. The compound is now treated with a desulfurization agent. This will lower the high temperatures. Once cooled down, a nickel resin is precipitated at the end. The individual pieces are only about 2 or 3 centimeters big and contain 1/3 to 1/4 nickel. That is all there is left in the end. The crabs are well rinsed with water. Erikatai returned to his son and his wife with his catch. What is a feast for others is an everyday occurrence for Erikatai's family. They eat crabs 2 or 3 times a week. The crabs are good. Yes, later we will eat with Mom and Dad. Will you eat with Mom? Is that okay? At weekends or on special occasions, Clara cooks crabs in banana leaves. She serves them with sweet potatoes, yam, bananas, and a coconut sauce. Because for Eric the night will be over at 4 in the morning when he has to leave to start his shift in the mine, today the simple version is served, crabs on their own. Containers with tons of nickel resin leave New Caledonia. It is shipped all over the world, to America, Asia, and to Europe. Some of the nickel resin also ended up in Bochum, in a ThyssenKrupp melting plant. It is added to the scrap metal that fills the hall by the train and truckload. The people are tiny in comparison, but nonetheless they control the processes. Every half hour, the electric arc furnace is filled with material in the 80-ton cages. This is a place where elemental forces meet. A glance into the fire of the earth, insights into processes that normally only take place deep below us. The workers monitor the transformation. With the help of oxygen, nitrogen, and other inert gases, the nickel fuses with the scrap. The shapeless mass is turned into an endless string. The slab, as it is called by steelworkers, is given the finishing touch. Heated, compressed, and rolled. Protected against rust and the ravages of time. Stainless steel. Wafer thin and supple, ready to be shaped into washing machines, cutlery, sinks, parts of cars, to adorn civilization.